Oh man. What? Can you repeat it, please? Sorry.
I define architecture as spatial practice.
I like to think of it as art on a giant scale.
Cross bridge of art and science.
I'm trying to look for a definition that isn't using the word art.
Manipulating space.
It's like the thoughtful making of space.
It's like space and spatial conditions, all that stuff.
Something that links one's body physically to a sense of like resonant place, but also tethers one's body virtually through time, economy, politics, and the human condition.
I don't know that I have an answer for that because I kind of think it's a dumb question.
Just the general like phenomenology of the built environment with like a really significant social implication.
I would define architecture as a dialogue between humanity and the earth through a built environment.
The human experience and their environment.
Anything that creates an experience for people or shapes someone's experience.
One part is how you experience it, and the other is how it functions, how it solves some practical issues.
Architecture is like a really rigorous method of problem solving.
Is sometimes I think of it kind of like baking. This notion that you have like a bunch of like pre-existing conditions, which are like the ingredients you work with, and then somehow through some magical act of sorcery and like willpower, you like make this amazing souffle of something and hope that it like comes out to something that someone enjoys to partake in.
A highly intentional like creation of space in order to sort of like provoke some, I don't know, action or feeling.
I think that it's not only built work, but also systems.
Optimism.
Process.
Thoughtfulness.
Edge, surface, form, boundary, field.
After going through 5 years of school here, I realized that there's a lot more. There's also the how it doesn't have to actually be a building, it can be some kind of installation or some kind of intervention.
In a sense, everything could be architecture, and I think that's a really general way of putting it.
Well, it can pretty much be anything at this point.
I feel like it could be almost anything.
Anything?
Don't think that architecture is everything. If it's everything, then it's nothing. Also, a lot of times architecture states as if it's doing some other profession's work that is not for architecture itself. So I think we are still figuring out the actual definition.
I definitely don't think you need to be an architect to make architecture, which is something that, given like everyone in our year not necessarily wanting to be an architect, I think they can still influence like the built environment in many ways.
I think it's like important in terms of like distinguishing what kind of medium that we're working in. Like it is important to define what is architecture and what is design, but I think at the end of the day they all bleed in together.
The school obviously has a very specific definition of architecture, and I think that's what's like generally pushed me away from like interest in participating in the field specifically.
The architecture from my past 5 years has been just making something, designing something so that it can flatter me or this professor or the people, whoever it is.
I mean, I've learned from the professors like it's an embodiment of everything, almost trying to incorporate like context and understanding people before you can create the building, understanding who you're going to create it for.
Involve kind of working with communities and dealing with kind of social issues.
I see architecture as a service profession, so the action of creating an environment that serves a purpose or a person to give them either shelter or an environment they feel comfortable in.
Creating space for people to live, play, and work within the space.
Anything that's made for someone in mind with the use of materials to better something.
Architecture is another like reminder that like everything in life is like pretty fleeting. So like the same way like I guess it's like your body. Like the same way that like your body will like crumble and decay, the same thing with like architecture. And like similarly, like how like your body like houses your soul, the same thing, like architecture like houses souls.
Innately, it is building space for people. So that encompasses a lot of things.
I don't know, in my case, I think architecture is something where both the designers and the people who will actually use the space can both enjoy it.
Much more about the builder than it is about the people that it's being built for sometimes.
I do genuinely believe that architects think that they have this kind of understanding of how things come together. And so I think traditional architecture ends up becoming that. Wow, this is actually kind of nerve-wracking. I don't really know.
I still don't know how to answer this question.
Okay.